pipe bomb, explosive.
Trebuchet. Medieval catapults. Flinging dead horses.
Dead horses? Sicilian mafia? Oh, God.
Oh, no.
Well, hey there, and thanks for stopping in to Night Shift Video. My name is James, and tonight I am joined by this guy.
Josh.
Josh, how you doing tonight?
Great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I have a little bit of a creepy story for us tonight. I actually, this is the first time ever that I actually prepped a guest on the creepy story.
You did.
So I told you what we're talking about, so you had a chance to look up some things. So you might even, there might be some things that popped out at you that I didn't bother to write down.
Yeah.
So we could actually like discuss it rather than me just tell you a story.
Yeah. Interactive.
Yeah. So tonight we're going to be talking about the disappearance of the Sodder Children. So I'm titling it "What Happened to the Sodder Family." That's going to be the title of the episode. And so a little background here. George Sodder was an Italian immigrant who owned a small trucking company. He settled with his wife and 10 children in Fayetteville, West Virginia, which was known for its large population of Italian immigrants. He made a living hauling coal that was mined in the area. Now, from all accounts, it sounds like George and the rest of the Sodder family were pretty just stand-up citizens. Like,
Yep.
is 1940s like the straight up
45.
Yep. Straight up American dream. Like, you come to America, you started his own business, like, picked himself up by his bootstraps, did the thing, like, married his wife, had a bunch of children to work the farm and all that stuff. Like,
Everything you want.
everything that people wanted, right?
40s, like, family
Right.
ideal setup.
Right. Now, something interesting happened to the Sodder family on Christmas Eve. I say interesting, a tragedy.
Yeah.
I don't want to make light of it by any means. I mean, obviously, we're very far removed from the situation. Happened a very long time ago. But still, it's not a good thing to talk about, but it's an interesting thing. So Christmas Eve, 1945, we start off, 3 of the younger children in the family wanted to stay up late because their sister had brought them home from work some new Christmas toys.
Yep.
She's working at a little dime store downtown Fayetteville and saved up enough to get her sister some toys. They're super excited when she gets home from work. Mom, can we stay up late? We want to play with our new toys.
Yeah.
And it's Christmas Eve anyway, so
Yeah,
you're going to
why
stay
not?
up late, right?
You're going to be up in 2 hours anyways.
So Jenny, the mother, decided, that was fine. They could stay up. They could play with these new toys. She just wanted the 2 of the boys to stay up with them, just kind of make sure they actually went to bed at some point and didn't just stay up until Christmas morning.
I'm going to catch Santa.
Oh, I tried that so many times. So yeah, that kind of deal. So all the older kids and all the parents go to bed. Everybody goes to bed. Kids are staying up a little late, playing with the new toys. No big deal. At about 12:30 in the morning, shortly after midnight, the telephone rings. And Jenny wakes up and goes downstairs to answer the phone. It is a woman on the other end who's asking for a name that Jenny doesn't recognize. Now, I think that there's like a time period of like wrong number. And maybe I'm mistaken. I wasn't alive in the 40s. I feel like that wasn't really a time of wrong number. Like, I'm sure it was a thing.
Right. It's not. There's 4 phones in the city.
Right.
Oh, you'd misdialed 3? Oh, maybe you should try 2.
Right.
I mean, I feel like in the 40s, America was pretty big. I don't know
Sure.
how widespread it was. Obviously, it was invented, the 1860s?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been around the block.
It's
I was
probably-
telling Hannah about the story, and then it was set in the 40s, and she was so confused. She's like, wait,
Phones.
they had phone and electricity? And he owned a trucking company? Like, yeah, the 40s weren't like cowboy times. Like, we were fairly developed by then.
But yeah,
feel bad that your history teacher has failed you.
Strange.
Yeah,
Especially
like
'cause
not
you-
a super commonplace thing.
Because you either had a
Oh, it's
rotary
probably
phone
rotary. That's true.
or an operator.
Yeah, I doubt there was
And
touch
it's
tone.
like-
It may have even been a party line. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe that was more in the city, and they were kind of on the outskirts, so maybe they didn't have a
Yeah.
party line. But like, Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you don't stick your finger in the 8 and then turn the 8. You're like, oh, oops. No, you're like,
Whoops.
eh. Who
So
knows?
yeah, so it seems like a wrong number. The woman's asking for a name that Jenny's not familiar with. And so Jenny just says, hey, sorry, I think you have the wrong house. I'm not sure who that is. And then the woman like laughs at her, and then they hang up the phone. Seems like a strange occurrence. Christmas Eve at midnight, you get a wrong number call, but whatever. So while Jenny's up, she realizes all the lights are still on downstairs. All the curtains are still open. And these are things that like the kids know to take care of before they go to bed. Maybe they got all wrapped up in the excitement of Christmas Eve and new toys and stuff and didn't. But like, even if the boys were staying up with the younger girls, like they probably should have done it. Like they should just know these things. They stay up late all the time and they take care of this stuff before they go to bed. We're also in a very different era. Even a 7-year-old is like getting up at 4 a.m. to go feed the chickens. You know what I mean? Like, so she's like, okay, whatever, and she closes all the curtains, turns off all the lights, goes back to bed. At about 1 a.m., she's awakened again by the sound of something hitting the roof. So my first thought is this some kind of weird Santa Claus thing? Like, it's Christmas Eve and there's something on the roof. Like,
Ho, ho, ho.
so I'm not sure where this story was going. But she heard something hit, and then maybe it kind of sounded like something rolled a little bit. But it was like, oh, nothing else is really happening. She'd already gotten up out of bed once, go answer the phone for some crazy lady. Like, she sits there, nothing else happens. I'm just falling back asleep. Like, I don't blame her whatsoever. I would have done the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And so she falls back asleep. And then literally like half an hour later, she wakes up again because she smells smoke. Comes to find out the house is on fire. She rushes, gets her husband and all the kids and like kind of getting everybody up and out. And like everybody gets out. And on their way, they see that the stairway up to the attic is already kind of engulfed in flames. The attic was where the younger children all shared a room together. So the kids are up there and they're like, okay, well, what we'll do is we'll go outside and then we'll like get them from the outside, like firefighters do.
Yeah.
And so they go outside. George has a ladder that he keeps in the exact same place every single day, right next to the house. It's gone. Ladder's just gone.
That's weird. I have a big ladder in my house. It hasn't moved in 3 months.
I know multiple people with very large ladders. Everyone I know that has a big ladder has one specific place for it.
Yep.
And that's where it always goes, and that's where it always is.
Yes, it's covered in leaves from all fall.
Everyone I know that has a big ladder operates by this exact same system. Ladder's gone. That's concerning. So then they go and they get a couple. They're like, all right, we'll grab a couple of Georgia's trucks, pull the trucks up, climb on top of the trucks, get in the attic window, get the kids out. This will work. Not just one of the trucks, but both of the trucks fail to start. Still, it's just like the worst luck ever. Like, this is just strange. And so after that, I mean, they're just sitting there, like, for the next 45 minutes, just watching the house burn and collapse. And assuming that the 5 younger children died inside.
Terrible.
God, it's so heavy. And I don't know. I can't even imagine like being in that situation. Now, there's a lot of extra details about the night specifically. And if some of those are things that stuck out to you, we can come back to it. Like the neighbor and the motorist who drove by, and like there's
Christmas lights. There's so much.
the Christmas light. There's all these little things. But before we get to that, I just want to share kind of the first half of the story. So that's what happened, and it's a terrible thing. It's a tragedy. But this is why it's strange. So George had some very strong opinions about Italian dictator Benito Mussolini. And this led to many strong arguments with other members of the immigrant community that he lived in. So pretty much everybody around him were Mussolini supporters, and he was not. He had a lot of really bad things to say about
if you liked
Mussolini.
him so much, why are you here?
That's what I was thinking.
Come
but,
on.
you know. So in October, there was a visiting, like door-to-door insurance salesman who came to the Sodder house, and after an altercation with extremely outspoken George, he said, "Your house will go up in smoke, and your children are going to be destroyed because of the dirty remarks that you've been making about Mussolini." Another man came to the Sodder house seeking some extra work. And he took this occasion of visiting George, asking him for a job, basically, to point out something weird about George's fuse box on the outside of his house.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Oh, hey, I could cause a fire someday." This is literally like 6 weeks before their house caught on fire. Just strange. George was puzzled by that man's observation because he had just had the house rewired because they had an electric stove installed.
Yep.
I'm telling you, George is kind of rolling.
George is the
For 1945, like
he's on top of it.
He's 1945 Appalachia.
He's like his own home inspector.
Yeah. My father-in-law home inspected the house that I bought, that we're in right now. And he did a great job. Mickey did a great job. But there is kind of a funny story in that the water had been turned off here for a long time, and then he turned the water off and a pipe burst. Or he turned the water on by himself because he was inspecting it by himself, and a pipe burst. So he had to, like, make repairs to this house before we even bought it. Oh, it's a funny story. And then also in the weeks before Christmas that year, some of the older Sodder children, they noticed a strange car parked along the main highway that goes through town, and the people in this car seemed to be watching the younger children. And so, and a lot of this, I'm sure, is like things that they're piecing together after this whole situation.
It's easy to connect the dots after.
Right.
Like when they go towards this one thing that is this huge thing.
Right.
It's easy. It's very,
right. Absolutely. So the fire, the coroner held an inquest, which I had to research what an inquest was because I didn't actually know. And basically, it's like a tiny little trial where they bring in a bunch of people and a bunch of experts, and like the jury makes a decision for the inquest of like what happened based on the data presented by all these different experts. And so the jury at this inquest determined that the fire was caused by faulty wiring in the house. But the weird thing about that is among the jurors on the jury was that same insurance salesman that had threatened George just weeks earlier.
Fishy.
Fishy
to say
as
the least.
Fuck. So here's a couple questions that the family has or had. Most of them have passed now. The youngest sister is the only remaining in the family. But here's some questions. If the fire was caused by an electrical problem, why had the Christmas lights stayed on during the early stages of the fire? Most people would assume that if you have an electrical fire that you lose power once whatever goes wrong goes wrong. If something bursts or pops or whatever, like you lose power and the spark starts the fire.
Right.
Usually most people would think that would be the case. But they distinctly remember their Christmas lights being on as they were evacuating the house and even seeing the Christmas lights from the outside of the house while the house was on fire. So that seems weird. The missing ladder was actually found days later at the bottom of an embankment 75 feet down the road. Yes. Just 75 feet.
So weird.
But if you're running outside in the dark and there's a fire, like, you're not going to find it.
But like 75 feet is it's a ladder.
It's a ladder.
It's not the size of a chair. Like
no.
It's at least, let's just say at least 10 foot long.
Probably, yeah.
Well, I mean, they didn't have extension ladders. It was a wooden ladder. So it was probably 20 feet long.
That might be true.
Very strange.
Yeah. Just hiding. It's just hiding. And then they had believed that, their phone didn't work whenever the fire happened because the fire burned through the telephone wires or whatever. This is a basic observation. But a telephone repairman came out to examine the crime scene. I guess I'm calling it a crime scene. They probably didn't at the time. And he found out and told the Sodders that their phone line was cut. It was not. I mean, the phone lines inside the house burned. Obviously, the whole house burned, but their phone line was cut, and that is also weird. An employee from a local crematorium told the Sodders that human bones can still remain even after the bodies are burned at 2,000 degrees for 2 hours, which is far longer and far hotter than the house fire ever could have been.
Yep.
Yet, the fire marshal says, and the forensics and the police say, absolutely nothing remains of what should have been 5 bodies that were in the attic.
Because of what? What was it? If Night of Living Dead? If we know anything, you got to go to a crematorium, get those bones.
That's right.
Make the rain all crazy.
Yeah, Return of the Living Dead.
Or, yeah.
Yep. So, yeah, and I've heard that too, of just like, I don't know, maybe I'm just around dark, spooky stuff too much, but like the fact that like crematoriums get extremely hot, way hotter than a house fire could get.
I mean, all fires get between like 1,200 and 1,800 degrees.
Yeah.
But like to have it be that hot, you need furnaces, like blacksmiths. That's why they have special kilns.
Yep.
That can actually
it
melt.
stays constant for 2 whole hours. Like, because I've seen that a lot whenever people like are tearing apart like horror or even just like mystery, drama, thriller movies. It's like when they're like disposing of bodies and stuff, they're like, oh, you can't just get rid of a. It's really hard to get rid of a body. Like, I mean, unless you listen to a lot of these podcasts where like it's more about like hiding it somewhere that no one will ever find it, you're probably better off doing that than trying to like destroy it.
You're probably better burning the body, getting the bones, and just smashing it with a hammer a lot.
Yeah.
And then just like put in a Vitamix.
Yeah.
or a ninja. Or the magic
and
bullet.
feed it to the neighbor's dog.
Yeah.
If there's gonna be a murder now, this is gonna be the MO. They're coming after us first. So these are the weird things about the whole thing. And then to top it all off, so the family really kind of never has given up hope that the fact that these children survived. Like,
well, just to finish that part, I would say that so this whole thing happened, all of this extra stuff. The fire marshal said this is what we think happened. They basically excavated the house. They made death certificates for the kids.
Yep.
And they just kind of said that's just it.
Right.
And then the family goes, we didn't find anything that would say that they died in this fire. And then so many other things, like the lights and everything, made it seem super fishy and very.
They start piecing
fabricated.
together all this on their own,
and then they really start this investigation into, The
so
rest.
they hired multiple private investigators that have found some very interesting things. But I want to kind of get to the capstone before we get into any of those details, if we want to get into those details, and that is that in 1967, so. 30 years or so after, 20 years, 22 years after the fire, Jenny gets an envelope in the mail with no return address that has a photograph of what appears to be one of her sons. And it has his name written on the back, and it looks to be a man that has a similar look to what her son did if he was, 20 years older.
Yeah. And there was stuff in the back of it too.
Yeah. What was in the back of it?
Louis Sodder. I Love Brother Frankie.
Oh, that's right.
Ill Boys. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Maybe an Italian thing. I don't know. And then a series of numbers and letters, A90132 or 35. I don't know what that means. I'm sure it meant something to them.
Maybe. So they hire another investigator, because even if it doesn't have a return address, if it goes through the mail, you can at least find out like what post office it came from. And so it came from this tiny town in Kentucky. I don't even remember the name. It was very, very unimportant. And so they hired another PI to go to that town, and they basically just never heard from that guy ever again.
Yep. I mean, usually when you don't hear from them again, it never is a good thing.
No. And even then, like we kind of always have to put it in perspective time too. So that was in 67. So like, you know, I mean, yeah, he's not going to get there and then like send a Facebook message. Like, I mean, you know, communication is much more difficult. And for whatever reason, this guy seems just kind of vanished.
Or paid off. Or Vitamixed.
Or any of those. Any of those are possible. Any of those are possible. You got any other details of the story that stick out to you?
You're actually hitting most of them. Let me look real quick. They in 49 they said they in one of the excavations they did find bones.
That's right.
But the experts said that they weren't exposed to fire and that it was from a person that was not of the right age.
Mm-hmm.
So now, obviously, back in the day, lots of people could have lived there and heck, weird things could have happened. But you don't expect to find another set of like I have a house. I don't expect to find someone's bones in it that I don't know. I don't know. It's very, that's what cemeteries are for. Like, bury your dog, your hamster.
Right.
You don't bury old Cletus who, just stepped off the curb the wrong way and was a goner.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's other little detail that kind of itches at me. So there's tons of things that you can find out. And the more you research this story in this case, the more that you'll find like more crazy stuff about it and just like different people who said things. Like there was a waitress at a diner not too far that said that she served the kids breakfast the next morning after the fire.
Like, everybody said they saw the kids like before and after, like since it's
and there's tons of like at one point it seemed that like one of the girls showed up at like a ballet school in New York and like George just immediately drove all the way there and like just swore that it was her and just like all this stuff like all these crazy things have happened. But the one that really tips me off to just there being something more within the community, because that's what I'm thinking, is that this is a very small, tight-knit community. Obviously, a lot of them have the same background. They all kind of
first generation off the boat Italians.
Yeah. And like sweeping something under the rug in that situation and that era is much easier than it is today, and God knows that it happens today. So the fact that many people in this circle could have been in on this situation, whether they were like actively doing it or whether they were paid off or their families were threatened so they're keeping their mouth shut or whatever, like whether they were like actively wanting to do this or whether they were just passive participants because it's such a small, tight-knit community. This detail is what really tips me to that line of thinking. So at one point, one of the PIs that they hired to investigate the case found out somehow that the fire chief had... We're breaking all kinds of code here. The fire chief had confessed to the local priest. They're Italians, they're all Catholic. He had confessed to the local priest that he had found a heart at the site where the house burned down. He put it in a box and he buried it, but he never told anyone.
I didn't see that. I didn't read that.
Yeah. So the PI found out somehow. I don't know how he was able to. Clergy code's not as good as doctor-patient confidentiality.
No.
But he found that out, and so then they questioned him. He was still alive at the time, and they questioned him about it, and he said, "Yeah," and he takes them there. They dig it up, find this box. It's got this piece of meat in it. They take it to specialists. I don't even know what kind of specialist you go to for that, but like, because it's super aged, obviously, and so like they're doing all kinds of tests.
Jerky guy.
Doing all kinds of tests to figure out what this thing is, and they found out that it was a piece of beef liver. It is not, in fact, a human heart.
Yeah, I often bury beef livers. I think that's weirder.
Right?
That's more confusing.
Right?
Maybe there's a... So, the thing that, as we can look at it going back now...
Yeah.
In that time period, obviously, Mussolini was still very much in power.
Oh, yeah.
Very much a thing.
Yeah.
And obviously, World War II was happening.
Yeah.
And...
he's not executed until 1 year before the fire happens.
Okay.
Yep.
And you would think that, Germans were trying to do similar things in America, trying to, bring things down from the inside.
Sure.
And this is a time when also the Sicilian Mafia is at it, like, I would say it's hype.
Yep.
Like, it got popular later on because
Right.
they were more known. But as they come over, they go, oh, we have...
Yeah, it got popular because they finally started getting caught.
Right.
This is whenever they were so good they weren't getting caught.
It's like gangs in New York. Like,
Right.
They have this whole new world where they can kind of run things. Like, there's not this American cartel. Like, we don't have this natural crime syndicate that they kind of did. I don't mean to make that sound bad. But it would make total sense.
Yeah.
There's so many dots that now you can connect that seem to point towards
and him being a successful businessman, like
and outspoken
against Mussolini, like maybe they're pressing him.
And just to say, I'll say it, to be outspoken as an Italian, whoa. We love you. We love you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. That about wraps it up.
And there's like little things. They have the billboard.
The billboard. That's going to be the thumbnail for the video.
So there's a billboard that the family set up. They have like the missing persons. Like, have you seen them? Blah, blah,
I'll drop that in right here.
And it's been up for years.
Yeah, long time.
Since like 2005 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's now like a landmark in that area. And the family that's still surviving is still,
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah. So, some other theories, obviously, are that, like, the Sicilian Mafia took these children somewhere. Some think maybe back to Italy, and that's probably the best theory as far as, like, you have the Wikipedia pulled up?
I can.
Okay, go ahead and do that because I do want to give credit to the NPR did do a story about it, and I want to give credit to the person who did it because I don't remember their name.
Hold on. Keep talking while I find it.
And so I don't know, like out of the options to me, I think the most likely thing is that these kids were taken back to Italy. I think that it would have been really hard, even in the 40s, for them to grow up completely in America and never get found out, but it is possible. Did you get that name?
Her name is Stacy Horn.
Stacy Horn. So Stacy Horn,
2005.
2005, kind of just blew this story up for NPR and researched the hell of it. Researched it more than I did because I just read a couple articles and the Wikipedia page. So, that's how we research in 2019. It's not 2005 anymore, Stacy. Sorry.
It's 2020.
It's 2020 now. You're right. Look at that. Who knew? So, and it seems like at the end of her telling the story that she felt the kids died in the fire. But then she kind of adds at the end, but if some new evidence were to come out to prove me wrong, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
It's like, it really seems like they died in the fire. That's probably what I think happened, but I wouldn't be surprised if...
She said something like,
they didn't.
Logic says they died in the fire.
Right.
But she wouldn't be surprised otherwise.
Yeah. I say...
Which for NPR...
Hey.
Come on.
I say logic does not say they died in that fire. But maybe I'm getting too worked up in my conspiracy brain. I say logic says they were taken to Italy. But that's just me. What do you think? We haven't had a ton of time to dwell on this, but what's your takeaway?
There's something nefarious happened. Whether the kids died in the fire or not, I think it was caused by an outside force that did not like this family.
This was not a crazy random happenstance.
Right. The house didn't randomly catch on fire.
No.
Nothing of this was an accident. What transpired after that, I think, could be up in the air.
Sure.
But I think this was purposefully caused.
Yeah. There was a bus driver who went on record saying that he was working that night and he saw like flaming orbs of some sort being thrown at the house or hurtled towards the house, which could have been some kind of pipe bomb, explosive.
Trebuchet. Medieval catapults. Flinging dead horses.
Dead horses? Sicilian mafia? Oh, God.
Oh, no.
It all circles back. Okay. That about does it for us here tonight for Night Shift Video. I'm James, and this is
Josh.
We're just saying, thanks for stopping in.